There's 2 ops. Cover me, I need a heal. Thank you. I'm gonna get revealed. Push it with me, push it with me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's just too easy. Another dub for this stream, boys. Let me check that Streamlabs out. Let me just... Just another so-so stream. I mean, there's gotta be something I can do to start pulling in the viewers. But what? Oh, I know what I have to do. I gotta get some sort of mascot. I mean, every big YouTuber has that gimmick, right? That's probably what I'm missing. Scott the Wallace has his loudness and screaming. People like Some Call Me Johnny have their trademark coffee mug in the Versus series, and heck, even AVGN's got his B-movie-esque editing and things like that. So I just gotta figure out what I can do to have my own gimmick so I can start incorporating new viewers and stuff into the channel. Just what should it be? Not up for me to figure out tonight. Way too long of a stream with not a lot of fun to be had. I'm just gonna sleep on this. Yeah, almost forgot the light. This is awkward, just flat out.
So you're not gonna question this at all?
I mean, not really much to question here. I asked for a gimmick, and you came to me.
No, well, yeah, I guess that is facts. So what do you say? Kick things off with a bang and let's review Ghost of Tsushima, the footage of which you've been sitting on for over 2 months almost.
I mean, sure, why not? It looks like it's gonna be interesting.
Ghost of Tsushima, a open-world samurai hack-and-slash developed behind the creative minds of such bangers like the Sly Cooper trilogy and the infamous Saga. As you can see with their track record, that's what the kids would say, they don't really miss. As you can see, Sucker Punch makes some of the most fun platforming and open worlds I've explored in quite some time, so that begs the question, is Ghost of Tsushima part of the greats, or could it be Sucker Punch's first flop? Well, no better way to start things out with diving into this story. The game takes place in, that's quite some time away, the 13th century, where we enter our protagonist Jin. He is a samurai raised by the Sakai clan and, of course, the last remaining of his clan. They are forced to fight an incoming Mongol invasion, and let me just say off the bat, the set piece is a really great starting point. There's absolute pure terror and chaos going on around you as you and your comrades are getting cut to pieces, and eventually the protagonist Jin himself defeated by the leader of the Mongols, Khan. It's a really great way of showing how powerful and destructive the Mongol nation is, and also having him be defeated by this emperor named Khan, his uncle getting kidnapped in the same breath, and villagers being set ablaze. It seems as if all hope is lost and gives you a pretty strong incentive to want to save the island of Tsushima. Things continue and Jin gets medical help from a thief named Yuna. Their cunning strategies and brutal assassinations help them manage to escape the clutches of the Mongols just barely. They set up camp with other villagers, and it's up to Jin and Yuna and a plethora of other great side characters you meet along the way to put an end to the sudden Mongol invasion, save your uncle, and of course reclaim the island of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima gameplay wise is simple in its design but layered in its execution. It is your standard open world affair in many regards, right? With plenty of side quests and collectibles to gather, all of which giving you minor or major rewards, along with the combat gauntlets, better known as the Mongol strongholds, that you could tackle either stealthily or all out aggressively. Usually I knock open worlds like this mainly just because I've grown a bit wary of them over the years, you know, the floating blue checkpoints and just endless stream of collectibles and that kind of thing, but once again, Sucker Punch saves me from boredom with one simple mechanic. It's the wind and guidance systems. As you travel the open world, birds will fly by your side, wind will blow in the direction you need to go, and foxes will lead you to power-ups and charms that are used to increase Jin's power level. And on top of all of that, sometimes you'll stumble across some Mongols that are holding prisoners, and taking out these Mongols will give you brand new territories to go find and take down. And it's really hopeful feeling that you're actually actively always contributing to either increasing your character's power level, getting yourself some swag with divinity item, or helping out the villagers and the island of Tsushima itself by learning where the Mongols are setting up camp and putting a stop to their shenanigans. To go back to the charms, they range from small things like gaining more resolve in combat, a mechanic that lets you heal yourself or use special moves, or some charms will give you increased damage, letting you throw multiple kunai or throwables, or just letting your sword do a little bit more damage than usual. And things of that nature really go a long way to give yourself a reason to constantly divert yourself from the main objective and go for those collectibles and do those side quests. And it's very important in crafting, well, a good open world, and this is most definitely one of them. Now, that being said, there are some issues where the quests themselves get a bit, well, dull for lack of a better term. There's just a ton of times where missions put you in been there, done that feelings, and that style of open world and old-timey island in Japan puts me in a position where once again I get over the pretty scenery and fun platforming and kind of just want to get back to the main quest and head back to finish stuff later, which is exactly what I ended up doing. It's not that the game's design is terrible or anything, or even bad, it just gets a little bit bland after a while, especially once you kind of unlock everything in the first act, which we'll cover a little bit later towards the end. Thankfully, Jin is a proud samurai slowly turning assassin, which gives you two varied playstyles to use and a good chunk of abilities to have fun with throughout gameplay. We have the ninja tool throwables, your smoke bombs, kunai, black powder bombs, and sticky bombs, along with various bow and arrows, things like fire arrows, explosive arrows, and distraction wind chimes. All of this stuff is pretty darn useful and goes a long way for making stealth runs pretty darn hard on the hardest difficulty, and it really does amount to some stress-inducing moments. You really gotta think on the fly, using your longbow, which has a longer range and higher damage output, to injure or one-shot heavily armored enemies is pretty gosh darn rewarding, and thinking on the fly knowing when to switch between all your different devices never really gets old. But if stealth isn't your thing, it sure as heck wasn't mine. The one-to-one sword combat more than suffices in Ghost of Tsushima. We got 4 stances to choose from. The stone stance for dealing with the swordsman. It's fast, it's quick, but sometimes you have to think on the fly and be a little bit more smart with how you parry and dodge roll. Your water stance for defeating the bulky shield users. These guys have a lot of wind up and it's pretty easy to dispatch them. The wind stance for taking on the super fast spearmen. Almost always have a parryable attack, but sometimes can catch you off guard with an unblockable red attack. And of course, the moon stance used for defeating those big bulky enemies, and these guys do not play. This is a very vital stance, as dealing with these guys is really difficult, as their unblockables more than often than not have a wind up where you have to jump over them, or else you're gonna get swept off your legs and launched 40 feet, it feels like, into the air. Getting new stances is pretty easy. You either kill or observe a Mongol captain while they're in their territory, and after doing either or, you unlock a piece of a puzzle to get your new stance. You do this around 16 sometimes, and then boom, you unlock all the stances, along with a myriad of special moves through the skill tree, and bada bing, bada boom, your character's kitted out and basically ready to handle any adversary that's thrown Jin's way. Usually on an aggressive run when you're running into camps, you walk into a stronghold to use the standoff feature, which puts you straight into a samurai style duel, which is extremely cinematic and feels absolutely incredible to pull off. You hold square, preparing for your opponent to make that one slip up, and once that moment comes, you let go of the button and you let your kill streak begin. And after the standoff, the cinematic Kurosawa-esque hack-and-slash extraordinaire, you are set to be unleashed and kill everything in your path with any means you see fit. Playing the game on hard mode was no slouch at post-patch. It was actually pretty darn easy pre-patch, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The game constantly had me switching between stances, and enemies don't take turns attacking you. They aren't afraid to dogpile you at once. It forces you to literally use everything in your arsenal, execute the perfect dodges and parries, which in turn sets up for some drop-dead, stunning, cinematic, and rewarding gameplay sequences when, you know, the camera isn't fighting you every 2 sword strokes. Regardless of the minor issues, the game was a white-knuckle hack-and-slash that pushed my gamer motions to the absolute limits, and yes, I loved every bit of it. And sure, there are a couple forced stealth segments, but thankfully, unlike in Ubisoft or other AAA title, they tied the story pretty wonderfully, like slinking away from Mongol camps to be undetected, get back home safely and reunite with your people, or using it to just survey Mongol camps and go in guns blazing, or I guess in this case swords blazing anyways. The stealth segments are few and far between, and it doesn't really eat up that much of your time, and by the end of it, you're kind of free to just play the game as you see fit, so I really respect it for that. Despite all I had to say about some annoying stealth segments, I gotta say Ghost of Tsushima has some of my favorite enemy strongholds in any open world game I've played in quite some time. I think it's really the sense of verticality and sneaky stuff you could get up to. Going under the house to make kills is pretty insane, and sneaking through windows and moving at very breakneck speeds just feels really snappy and intuitive. And there's always a ton of places to run off to either heal or just catch your breath during a long aggressive fight, or of course a stealthy one if that's your choosing. Making pathways to benefit either your aggressive or slow-paced playstyle is absolutely vital, and it simply would not be possible had it not been for the pretty unique ways each stronghold is handled, for giving me cliff sides for sniping at enemies from afar, buildings to rush in and take cover behind, and set up traps to kill enemies in big clusters, hornets' nests to stir up, or honestly open environments with refillable ammo to keep my kill count high. There's always something in the world to help the playstyle you see fit. The stances, weapons, and level design mix together really well, and the bonus events such as forming haikus for new armor pieces or cutting bamboo to increase your resolve only go the extra mile for making the game a world I want to explore on my own time. The downside, while it's the gameplay, it can be great. The loop and longer bursts just gets a little bit tedious. The enemy AI isn't really what I would call fear level, you know? They tend to get stuck behind walls, freeze during attacks, or flat out just bug out, often, which in turn makes the game feel a bit unpolished. This goes doubly for hard mode pre-patch, where one checkpoint enemies would completely assault you with ease, using everything in their power to see Jin dead, and the second checkpoint, they're rocks. Like, they're literally rocks. You would find them often stuck behind walls, getting stuck on each other, attacking each other, and all sorts of normal AI jank that's come to find with these open world style games. And it's sad too, because when the game works and the AI uses all their awesome unblockables and the parry blue attacks and the perfectly timed setups you have and dodging the bow users perfectly with their poison or fire arrows, and some even using explosives that visually impair you, and when it all works they do what they're programmed to do, it's a borderline infuriating game where you know when you lose it's just your fault for not playing the game correctly. But more often than not, again pre-patch, enemies were just getting stuck on objects and not using abilities near me in any way, shape, or form, and it really wasn't the hard mode I signed up for. Thankfully, that does get changed, not only with the brand new patch making the AI just, in my opinion, a lot harder and really brought back the hard mode I was really looking for, but further enhancing the game with the plethora of one-on-one duel segments, where you are forced to use nothing but the blade and memorize your opponent's attacks and destroy their precious guard meter and let a flurry of deadly slashes cut your adversary down to size. The constant mixture of good to decent stealth, incredible swordplay, and thought-provoking one-on-one duels makes for an experience that during a main story run never overstays its welcome. Sure, it does get a bit repetitive if you go for 100%, especially seeing how the one-on-one duels reserved for a bit more scripted story segments, but it's still an awesome gameplay experience. Presentation is everything in a AAA game. You can have the most bog standard gameplay humanly possible, and I'll be honest, I'll forgive you as long as your presentation is top notch. And Ghost of Tsushima's graphics are out of this world, man. Its world design, as previously described, is borderline perfect, with plenty of classic and well-designed Minka-style houses to explore, huts to dive underneath for a sneak attack, and yes, even the windows of the sort to move through. The game's sense of verticality is insane, and when you couple that with breathtaking mountainscapes to climb as you overlook the vast island of Tsushima, you get wrapped up in this feudal Japan treat. The art style is also outstanding. outstanding. The game heavily relies on particle effects, so often you'll see vibrant leaves and blades of grass moving through the wind effortlessly. And thanks to the guiding wind mechanic, the smallest grass blade strokes can point you in the right direction, which just makes the island feel that much more lived in. The color range is stunning, especially on the PS4 Pro. This is one of the few games that really takes advantage of HDR. Reds pop out robust crimson, cherry blossoms look like they're right out of an anime, and the particle effects on smoke and fire feel just beautifully realistic, right down to fire arrows and explosions spreading throughout the glass, leaving lingering status effects. It's a downright gorgeous game that does a strong job of combining the realistic character design with more cel-shaded environments, and it goes a long way establishing Ghost of Tsushima's own unique style. The music is a bit, well, tacky, I suppose. It's your generic samurai music, but for a game that's all about paying tribute to the Kurosawa films, I think it fits the bill pretty, well, and the more calm things are definitely a blessing to the ears. And those weather effects, let's talk about them real quick. Thanks to the bang up jobs the colors play on the game, it never ceases to amaze me. I personally love looking through the storms during the day. The sky turns this grayish green as thunder and lightning pound at the sky. Sunsets look awesome as they should, and hey, even the rain looks pretty nice as it rolls off your character effortlessly. The whole art direction the game took deserves top praise. It really makes this game stand out in a sea of open world adventures this console generation. So does Ghost of Tsushima have any major negatives? Well, unfortunately, of course, no game is absolutely perfect. My biggest complaint is the upgrade system. In Ghost of Tsushima, while you pick up supplies, steel, iron, and a myriad of other crafting parts to upgrade your bow, dagger, and sword, and that kind of stuff, it just doesn't really do much for me. I got my sword to around the 4th level, 2 away from the highest, almost to the 5th at points, and felt basically no different than I did at the beginning of the game. And this goes for a lot of the damage upgrades I installed, so I ended up equipping more life leech builds like charms to recover resolve faster or recover health after killing an enemy. And also, Ghost of Tsushima kind of suffers from a why bother syndrome. Remember I talked about Act 1 and the issues I had with it way back? It's something many open world games stumble into, and essentially means why bother upgrading everything if it does little to affect the gameplay in any drastic way. While playing through the first act, I went out of my way to grab every fox den, clear out every camp, and observe and kill all the leaders I could, etc, etc. And once it was finished, my tree was basically complete. I grabbed most of the warrior skills, which was how I was playing. I got all the stances and even unlocked new armor and special moves. So when presented with new side quests, as fun as they could be at times, my personal favorites being the quest where you're giving a feudal Japan style painting and have to match the location of the painting to the one in your real world in-game map, as meta as that may sound. The reward for your effort put in feels it's just not really that worth it. So by the second and third act, I was kind of just done and felt like I did all I needed to do for now, and would go back and finish the rest at a later time when I didn't feel as tedious or bored with the gameplay. The game, I feel like, even knows this, so they try to throw in 1 or 2 new mechanics like poison darts or ghost streaks, the first being self-explanatory, the second being a rage mode of sorts that lets you one-shot any enemy assuming you build up the meter without getting hit once. It also lets you terrorize Mongols, causing them to run away in fear or sometimes even beg for their life. And minus a few new additions, the game just lacks a substantial amount of content to keep a homie going in all honesty. But if upgrades in the grind are your kind of thing, have at it, there's plenty of fun to be had here. So, the big question is Ghost of Tsushima up there with the greats on the PS4 exclusive Master Race chart? I mean, they just make bangers, right? Well, short and sweet, yes, it's an awesome game with a slick cinematic style that genuinely feels like you're playing a movie, and it accomplishes this with barely any QTEs or scripted set pieces. The game is entirely, for the most part, interactable. Its world design and presentation is top notch, and of course, despite some rough sections, the gameplay is amazing as well. Overall, Ghost of Tsushima is great minus some small blemishes. I think it's a great game worthy of your attention, and I'm really excited to see what Sucker Punch has in store for us come the next console generation.
Well, thanks for joining me on this interesting review segment. Having myself around here just doesn't feel the same now that I got a slick new mascot. I guess it's time for a change of pace around here.
Well, this is a natural evolution of your content creation, so it doesn't come too much as a shocker that I'm taking over the review reins for quite some time. Regardless, thank you guys so much for watching this Ghost of Tsushima review. It's been a blast working on the video, and most importantly, despite all the hold-up delays and moving shenanigans, it's been great that you guys have stuck with me throughout all this time. It really does mean a lot, and I'm glad I could deliver once more some killer content. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, and subscribe down below, and hey, check out that box up there. Maybe you want to check out some of my other content and see what else is on the channel that could tickle your fancy. Hope you guys have a great day. YungFalcon signing out. Peace.